Hello, and welcome to our webcast about Delphi, which is powered by Feedinfo and we launched last year. It's a groundbreaking strategic product for the feed additives industry. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Sam Weatherlake, who's our senior analyst at Feedinfo, who's one of the team responsible for Delphi's development, and by Shobik Sen, who's Feedinfo's head of enterprise sales, who's also been involved in the product from the start. So, Sam, we'll start with you. Tell us a bit more about Delphi. What is it? What does it do? And what products does it cover?
Well, Delphi at the moment covers 6 products, 3 amino acids and 3 vitamins. So we've started with methionine, lysine and threonine on the amino acid side and vitamins A, E and B2 on the vitamin side. Each database runs from 2004 through to 2025, including a 5-year forecast. And the main components for each one are capacity, production, consumption and trade. Now, each database is built from country level up. So we have country level, then regional and global. And capacities are tracked down to the individual plant level, including locations and where applicable, the product mix as well. The Delphi service comprises updates twice a year of the supply and demand database. And that's accompanied by a plants and projects list in which plants are grouped by ownership rather than by region. And it also comes with a commentary. Now, in the other quarters, we provide shorter updates consisting of just the commentary and an updated plants and projects list.
So I know that 2020 and 2021 so far have been quite interesting and in some cases very notable years for lots of reasons. So perhaps tell us just about those key drivers.
As you say, 2020 and 2021 are an interesting period, although it really began in 2019 when African swine fever really ravaged the Chinese pig herd. And so that impact has been feeding through over the past couple of years. Now, the pig herd has recovered rather faster than many people had expected. Chinese media said that it's now back to 90% of its level before African swine fever. We do have to be cautious with official data coming out of China, of course, but it's clear that the recovery has been very rapid. At the same time, there's been a trend on poultry production, which has had a big impact because in 2019, chicken production in China hugely expanded to try to compensate for the loss in pork output. So we're now in a situation where we have a lot of pork output and a lot of poultry output in China. And so looking ahead to 2021, countries that had been heavily dependent on exporting to China may find that they are having some difficulty in placing their output, particularly given, of course, that we're now in a situation where COVID has depressed demand, and that's likely to continue for at least the first few months of the year.
What does this mean for feed additives?
In the case of lysine and threonine, there was a huge decrease in China in 2019 as African swine fever destroyed around 50% of the Chinese pig herd. They staged a recovery last year, a modest one in the case of lysine and quite a strong recovery in the case of threonine. And so we're expecting that to continue, not at the same dramatic level, but we're expected to see a solid performance there this year. Methionine was the opposite trend, of course, because the chicken production in 2019 hugely boosted methionine consumption in China. So methionine's had a very good couple of years. And again, I would expect that to continue, but at a more moderate level this year. On the vitamins, vitamin A and vitamin B2 took quite a hit in 2019 for the same reason. But the Chinese material was exported in that year, so that consumption in other parts of the world did help to compensate for the loss of consumption in China. And again, we're expected to see pretty solid performance across all the vitamins this year.
Have you seen are there products that are gaining market share at the expense of others, and why is this?
There's some interesting trends in lysine at the moment. So, for instance, ADM announced recently that they were withdrawing completely from the production of dry lysine, HCl, in favor of liquid lysine. So that's something to keep an eye on. And at the same time, as lysine sulfate capacity grows in China, we're seeing some substitution there, again, at the expense of lysine HCl.
You just mentioned a fairly major change in the market. And I know that the plants and projects database you have, which covers all producers globally, is an integral part of Delphi. Have you seen any major changes here?
A couple of things that have come out in the last few months. Firstly, Evonik's decision to close their oldest unit at Wesseling in Germany, their smallest methionine unit, to focus on their major production hubs elsewhere. And CJ's recent announcement that they're expanding threonine production in the US, which is interesting in the context of COVID and the general debate about whether we need shorter supply chains and a bit less structural dependence on Chinese output, because China represents about 95% of threonine production in the world now, which is obviously a huge global dependence on production there.
Sam, I know you're happy to take questions, as is Shervik, and I'd ask anyone watching with queries to email them to us at events@feedinfo.com and we'll get in touch. But there's obviously far more to Delphi than and its use than we can talk about today. But Shervik, I know you've been talking to a lot of companies about Delphi. Can you tell me a bit about the types of businesses who've been finding the information of use?
We've received lots of inquiries from quite the wider parts of the industry, as well as the core players as well. The main interest we're finding are from the actual microingredient manufacturers themselves, as well as any large-scale purchasers of these microingredients on the global markets as well. I mean, as the first fully independent source of supply and demand information on these particular microingredients, it has definitely generated a lot of interest in the industry as we can see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the people who have purchased Delphi, can you tell me a bit more about how they're using the information, what's been most useful?
The two main groups of companies have been the manufacturers themselves, and it seems that most of these companies have subscribed to the Delphi package really as a way of understanding competitor intelligence, and also to compare their own estimates of the market compared to our and Sam's and the team's analysis of the market. So there definitely is a strong interest in understanding how do our figures sit well, or whether they challenge or validate the own ingredients, opinions and estimations of the market. And then there is a lot of interest, obviously, from anybody who are purchasing these ingredients on a quarterly or monthly or even an annual basis on a larger level. And again, for them, it's really to aid their discussions with their suppliers at the time, and also to aid their sales conversations as well with their own customers. So there seems to be a twofold benefit, really. One, to understand the market as a whole, but also to aid negotiations and discussions you're having with your customers and the vendors.
So, Sam, just tell us a little bit more about any future developments that you're planning.
Yes, well, we are still very much looking at introducing new products into Delphi. Of course, our pricing coverage covers quite a wide range of vitamins and amino acids, so there are a number of products in the pipeline, and we would certainly hope to be able to introduce at least one more amino acid and one more vitamin over the course of this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I know that you're working on the latest quarterly updates as we speak.
Yes, that's right. The winter update will be coming out within the next couple of weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, that will be an update on the commentary and the plants and projects list ahead of the next supply and demand database update, which is due in May.
Well, thank you both for taking part and joining me today to discuss Delphi. If anybody would like more information on Delphi, again, you can email us at events@feedinfo.com, or you can look up more at www.feedinfo.com/Delphi, where you can also sign up for a demo and find out a lot more about it. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you found this of interest.